Good morning, everyone. How are you today? I'm just going to make sure I'm popping up on my phone here. Hope all is well with everyone this morning. Give me a minute. Refresh, refresh. Yep, looks like I'm here. Okay, so I am Angie Oldenburg. I'm going to be doing a presentation this morning, starting the morning off. We've got 4 presentations today. And then I am going to be hopping back on at about 1 o'clock and kind of closing everything out and summarizing everything. So thank you for joining us again. I am in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. It's kind of a dreary Saturday morning, sort of. At least it's not raining, I guess. Here in Wisconsin this weekend, it is opening deer hunting season. So for all of you from Wisconsin, hopefully you or your significant others who are deer hunting get their fill and enjoy the weekend safely. So for those of you that aren't from here, if you have questions about that whole holiday basically here, we can talk about that another time, I guess. So I'm going to try and see if I can have comments show up here. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. If anybody's on, let me know. I know I'm moving slow this morning, so waiting for everybody to wake up. And I'm going to also apologize if I'm a little discombobulated. I had some family text messages going on this morning, so a little bit of stuff happening. So I might be a little bit distracted with that. But anyway, we're going to get through this. So I'm using the Delicate Pines dies and Designer Series paper. You saw this from Maureen yesterday. And I think there's going to be one more presentation today with that. Let me look. My schedule was printed out so tiny on my paper here. Yep, I think Diane, who's right after me, is going to be using it as well. So you'll get a good variety of options for this. Love the dies, love all the options of the pine boughs and everything. And the greetings are nice because they're not specifically Christmas. Let's see if I can get that clearer. They can be used anytime in the winter, I think, so they could still be used into January to send cards. So that's what I like about this one specifically. You don't have to use it as a Christmas card, either if you don't celebrate that or if you just want to use it for another occasion. So I'm going to move this out of the way. I've got most everything prepped and ready to roll here. So I'm just kind of rearranging my piles. I will show you these dies specifically when I get to the specific cards we're making. And here's the papers. We're going to be using this page here. And I apologize, my dog is wanting to play now, of course. I might have to go put him in his crate if he keeps that up. If you hear a squeaky toy, I apologize. So beautiful papers, lovely colors, all different kinds of greens. So I'm actually going to make a different card. I'm making 4 cards with all of the different greens that are included in here. So you'll get to see all of the options. So let me move that out of the way too. And we're going to bring in our 6x6 piece of Designer Series paper and my trimmer. And we're going to cut this. So this is the template I am using. Of course, if you order, you're going to get a copy of all these templates. So it's 6x6, and then I'm just cutting in 3x3 squares, and then I'm going to be cutting those into smaller pieces, except for the one I'm going to use a 3x3. So I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to start trimming. So just cutting it in half, both directions first. Make sure you can see that. Maybe I'll go up on the top here. Be easier. And cut this one in half. I like this because then I don't have to worry about missing a cut or something if I'm supposed to cut it one of them a different way. So we're going to leave one for the 3x3, and then one of them we are going to cut diagonally. And I have to do this closer so I can see the points. So that we have that, and then one is going to be in 1-inch strips. frame here. Say hi if you're here. I'll see if I can see comments. Maybe I can't. Gosh, I thought there was a way that I could see comments last time, but maybe not. Okay, and then this piece I'm going to be cutting into 1.5 inch squares. Oops, I think I miscut this. You know what? No, that's 1.5. Maybe it's just a little bit wider. Oh, that one just really looked odd. It looked like it was a lot wider. I guess not. My measurements are correct. Goodness. Must be my eyes this morning. I haven't had all of my caffeine yet. Okay, so I'm going to slide these pieces off and we'll look at them on the template. Get my trimmer out of the way. Okay, so there's one square, and then there's the diagonal and the 3 strips, and then the 4 squares. So we're going to be making 4 cards today. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Certainly you could mix them up. You wouldn't have to use like these 3 pieces on one card and these 4 pieces on one. You can, you know, mix and match, of course. So I'm just going to put these in piles for the cards when we get to them. And we'll start with the big square first. So here's our first card. This one is using, I'm going to move the template out of the way too, Mossy Meadow as the base. As the card base, and then I've got different layers. So get all my pieces organized here. Standard card base, fold it in half, easy peasy. This is for the inside. This one is for I put this in as a sample because what I usually do when I'm cutting things out like this is I will cut them out of this layered piece, and then you can just put your designer series paper over the top of it. So it was a 3 by 3.25 by 3.25 piece of vanilla that I did this ahead of time because I thought it would be easier. Stamped with the smaller snowflake. You can see that. Let me put it here actually. Smaller snowflake. And then in Mossy Meadow, and then I die cut it. So I'm going to show you these dies because what they do, these pieces here are for the inside. So let me stamp one. I'm not going to die cut it, but I'll stamp it, and you can see kind of what they look like when they're stamped. Bring this piece back. So I stamp it right in the middle. Doesn't matter if it's straight or not because you're going to die cut it out. And then you're going to put this piece around the edge. And then this is the part that will cut out the inside of the petals, or what, you know, they're not petals necessarily, they're inside of the snowflake. So it does get a little bit, you know, kind of futzy, but what I would do is either use washi tape or a sticky note or, you know, some of that removable something, whatever you prefer, and then stick it down before you put it through the die cut, before the cut and emboss. So, and then you run it through, and this is what you get. So I'm going to put this aside because I already did it. I am going to just pull out my scratch paper here, because what I also did for the inside, find and finish, is just decorate the inside. So we'll do that quick first while I've got the ink pad out and the snowflake. I'm going to use snowflakes because they look like that, but they are pine boughs. So they're really pretty. Love them. Just kind of did that. And then I used the greeting it's the most magical time of the year. Ink that up. And hopefully hopefully I get it. Let me put my head in here for just a second, get it sort of straight. And there we go. And that's going to be the inside of our card, so I might as well just put that right on the inside. Get it out of the way so it's attached. Okay, and then I'm going to move my little scratch paper out of the way. And then we're going to do our layers for the front. So Designer Series paper, the 3x3 piece. Layer it over the vanilla. And then I'm going to stick it right down to the card, and then I'm going to put dimensionals on this snowflake so that it pops up a little bit. So these are, the ones I'm doing here today are real simple layouts that you could use interchangeably for a lot of different cards. And I'm just finding my dimensionals here. And I'm just grabbing the dark ones because the paper, Designer Series paper is so black or dark. I just think they don't necessarily show up quite as much if they're peeking out the edge, but that's a personal preference thing. Okay. And pull all these off. So a little bit, so I mentioned earlier that it's deer hunting here in Wisconsin starting today. This is the weekend where they have all kinds of Deer Widows events. So lots of people are out buying crafts, and craft shows are happening, and lots of porch pot classes, and I used to have card classes. Didn't get it figured out for this year. And so it's fine that we're doing this event. Alright, so I cut out some of these holly berries. This is one of the dies. I'll pull it up. I had cut out a bunch of them and put them in a little baggie, so how teeny tiny they are. And I'm just going to stick it on with a glue dot right in the middle. Where'd my glue dots go? I got the box. Where's the glue? Okay, sorry. You're there. With all these projects, I got so much stuff on my desk that I can't find what I want to find. Alright. So I just kind of roll the glue dot up because if it's in a circle, it's gonna be sticky. So I kind of roll it up, and I don't know if you can see that or not. Make sure the sticky stuff is on the back. And then put it down right in the middle. And then what I'm going to do before I forget is I'm going to take a Wink of Stella, and it can dry while I'm doing the rest of the steps for this. Whoops, wrong way. And then I just painted the holly berries with a little Wink of Stella to give it a little sparkle. Absolutely love Wink of Stella. One of my favorite things. And then for the warm winter wishes, I have a basket of scraps. And so, you know, when you're doing layers for your cards, you end up with the edges of the paper. So I just keep these long strips. So I just grabbed a strip, and I think it's a 3/4 inch strip or width for the grading. And let's see, we're gonna do warm winter wishes. And since it's too long, I'm just going to show you what I do. Is I just stamp kind of on towards the end. And you can do that for whatever your greeting is. And then I bring my paper trimmer. Or you can even use snips because it's really not that hard to cut a straight strip when it's this small of a piece of paper. And I just kind of eyeball it so that it's even. Oops. And then you have your your greeting. You don't have to measure it out specifically. And then I'm going to grab this ribbon. This is the Mossy Meadow and Gold ribbon. Very pretty, very shimmery. Love it. And I'm just going to cut a piece that's going to be long enough to come underneath my greeting. So again, not necessarily anything you have to measure before your project. You can kind of do it as you go. And then I'm going to just, I think I used hair and tape to stick the ribbon down. That's probably the easiest and the most secure. Oop. Just got to get that paper to come off of there. You know what? Fingers this morning. Try that again. There we go. And then if it hangs over, you can always double it over on itself and it won't be sticking out underneath. And we're going to lay that down so it's sort of centered. And then what I'm going to do, I did notice that this ribbon does fray a little bit on the end, so once it's tacked down, I just kind of snipped off the frayed bits if you want a more finished edge. And then I'm going to put some dimensionals. Let's see, I can use the big ones for this. Since we're going over a ribbon, I want to kind of offset them so that we make sure that we get some of it stuck to the card and not just the ribbon. Sometimes they'll pull off of there. And then we'll just tack that down. And there is card number 1. So this would be pretty straightforward, easy to do. The most timely part of it, if you're going to make a bunch of these, would probably be cutting out or die cutting the snowflake out. But they're super cute and love the snowflake. All right, so I'm going to move that one out of the way. Move on to the next. And let me clean off my stamps here too quickly, because I am going to use the same greetings on some of them, and I want to make sure I'm not putting different inks in the wrong spot. We have all done that at some point. So sorry for my arm being in the way there. And where's my warm winter wishes? Oh my goodness. There it is. Sorry. Okay, on to the next one. So I'm going to move this out of the way too. So the next one we're going to do is our triangle pieces. And I am using garden green for this one. So you can see all of the different greens that are included in this Designer Series paper. You can use just about any green ink pad that we have. So this is the layout. Pull out all the pieces. I love cutting pieces of paper at an angle and then doing this kind of a greeting in here. So it can be a 3x3 piece or it can be a 4x4 piece on a front of a card. I just think it looks really cool and it's really fun, kind of unique way to have a layout. So I love that design. So again, standard card. And then I've got an inside again and then a layering piece. So let's put, yeah, I did just some little pine boughs. We'll decorate the inside. These little guys. First, oops, hold on, let me try to get that again. There we go. And then I'm also going to use the same greeting. It's the most magical time of the year. There. And clean that off right away, and I don't have to worry about when we're done. And we'll put this on the inside. Okay. Then for the layering pieces for this is Secret Sea. If you haven't seen this, that it is a dark blue, kind of blue-black, and that is the background color for this designer series paper. So we're just going to do a layer on top of that. We'll stamp first. Now, some people are going to maybe get a little freaked out about this, but you know what I do when I'm doing these cards is I stick down the designer series paper first and then I stamp. Normally we don't do that because in case you mess up, you want to make sure that you can flip the paper over. But I'm going to be brave and kind of bold today, so we'll see if this works. So I just flip the paper over. And I'm going to move it in. I line it up so that there's an even border around it, if I can. And I usually just eyeball it. And then we're going to bring in the Celebrate the Season stamp. And I'm just going to, looking to see, oh, I see some, if I pull my phone up I can see your comments. Let me, oh, Vicki, I'm sorry that you have a funeral that you have to attend today. Hopefully you can watch more later. Alright, so I'm stamping it up or inking it up, and look, I made a mess on it, but you know what, I'm still going to be brave and try to stamp without worrying about it too much. So you just have to be stamped straight down and not rock too much, and voila, no problem. So that is, when you're doing these triangle cards like this and cutting the paper like that, it can be a little challenging to stamp first and then add your paper, just because of the, lining everything up. So I tend to always stick my paper down first, or at least lay it there temporarily so you know where it is, if you're not comfortable with completely sticking it down all the way. So then I'm gonna add it to this layer. Oh, hi, Carol. Alright, and then we can stick it right down to the front of the card. I hope you all are getting all kinds of ideas from all of our presentations. You know, you can go back and rewatch the ones that happened yesterday. And all that. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull in, oh, I forgot my little pine boughs. Hold on, for the decoration here. So we're just going to kind of frame the greeting a little bit. Depending on what greeting you're putting in this layout of designer series paper, if it's a longer one, you wouldn't I felt like there was a little empty white space here that it needed something, which is why I added those pine boughs. And then I'm going to pull in the faceted snowflakes. These are the gems that are part of this suite. And they're so pretty and so sparkly. And they look like snowflakes, but I think they also look like, they could be stars, they could be, I don't know, they could be lots of other things. It kind of reminds me of the 4th of July, to be honest. So I'm just going to grab, one here. They are thick, so mailing these might be a little tough. So just be aware of that. I'm going to flip this around and use the other end. There. Just to add some bling. Certainly if you're handing a card off, that would be a cute addition. Just to add a little sparkle. Okay, card number 2 is done. We're making okay time here. Let me get this out of the way, clean off my little pine bough again, clean the rest of them, and then we will move on to the third card. Alright, next one, we're going to be using Shaded Spruce. Another beautiful green that I love. I love greens in general, but I think Shaded Spruce is probably my favorite out of all of these. And we're also using some Old Olive, so you can see kind of how we can pull different greens out of this paper too. I think if you look at the back of the package, it doesn't even have Old Olive on there, but it certainly is something that can coordinate. So again, I stamped on the inside of the card for, oh, and I didn't cut one of those. Okay, so we're gonna skip that part since I didn't cut an inside layer, but it's basically the same as what I did before. I added some of the pine boughs and then the Celebrate the Season stamp on the inside. We'll do the front though. So here are the 3 1x3 pieces. And then what I did is I cut out of the dies, with the dies, this piece here. I did 2. And I will give you a little bit of advice when I was doing that. These little pieces, they are pretty fragile. So I actually had to use, a lot of our dies now I don't necessarily have to use wax paper, but I had to use some wax paper. That's an old trick for die cutting. Just put it on the inside between your, so you lay this down and then you put this on the paper. It helps kind of lubricate, for lack of a better description, the die so that your fine dies come out. Because what was happening when I was trying to punch things out, they were getting, they were tearing in here. So once I used the wax paper, it's been fine. So just a little tip on that piece. If they weren't so fine right in here, I don't think it would be an issue. And it wasn't an issue for any of the snowflake ones that I've done. Okay, so just gonna layer these pieces. And these are just like a 1/16 of an inch a layer here. Just a real narrow one. And certainly if you want to use glue, you can move these around. Like, I didn't get that layered exactly great on that one. That's what happens when I try to move too fast. I notice I got my fingernail in the green ink, man. I have green fingers by the end of the day here. But that's okay. I say, if you have inky fingers, you know you've been creating. Okay, so this is, again, pretty simple layout. So I'm just going to start putting these pieces down on the card front. And I just sort of started at the left on the top and made a nice even border here. And then I added the one on the right bottom corner, just sort of mimic that spacing. And then you just want to make sure that there's enough room to get that next piece in there. So I probably could have moved this one over a little bit more, but it'll still work. I didn't lay that down very straight, did I? Let me try to remove that. Move it a smidge here. And you know, sometimes turning things upside down helps too. There. Alright, so then we're going to build our greeting. So the first thing, we're going to stamp the warmest wishes, or winter wishes. I had punched this out already, obviously, so that it would save a little time. And that's all the stamping, so I'm going to close the ink pad here. And then we're going to build up the layers. So this is the ribbon that also is in the suite. It is gold edged ribbon, shaded spruce. So what I did, I just kind of cut, here's how I eyeball things. I cut this about the width of the card. And then what I do to get the little edges, you probably already know how this goes. You fold your ribbon in half and then you snip in. I want to make sure it's even. You snip in from the edge and that makes your little chevron, whatever shape that is, your little edge. So same thing on the other side. And then snip. And then I see it's a little bit too long, so you can do it again. What I would do is I'd fold it back up and just take a little bit more off so that it's the right length when you lay it down. It just kind of touches the edge. That's how I do it. There's probably other ways to do it. I just kind of figured that out along the way. And then I'm going to put this down with sticky strip also because it'll stick really well. Sticky strip. Well, that's an old term. Wowza. Tear and tape. I've been a demonstrator for a lot of years, so sometimes these things, we get new products and I still use the old names. Alright. If you're watching on replay, let me know that you watched on replay too. That's always fun to see. And always, as always, we love to see samples that you guys have made of anything we do. We love to know that we're inspiring you. Hopefully we are by all of this. Alright, so then I'm just going to attach these two pine boughs to the back side of the label. So I'm going to put adhesive here. This is how I usually always kind of build these, you know, when I'm making something like this that attaches to the front of the card that has lots of layers. So I'm going to just tack this down on the back, and then I'm going to just offset this a little bit so you can see all the boughs of the pine. And then what I'm going to do is put dimensionals on it. And then it'll pop up. And it'll also be stuck really well to the front of the card. Because these pine boughs are a little fragile, you want to make sure they're supported. Oops. Got a little close to the edge on that one. Alright. Okay. Sorry, there's quiet space there. Lots of concentration when I'm doing those things. Okay. And then we're going to lay this down right on the top of this. And there's card number 3. I'll show you all of them together once I'm done with the fourth one here. And here's card number 4. Let me get the scissors out of the way. Okay, this one is using Pretty Peacock as the card base. And I switched it the other direction a little bit here and added another kind of bluish gosh, let me see, Balmy Blue. Make sure I'm getting that blue correct. And a few different layers here. So we've got the layer for the inside, the card front. So this is Cherry Cobbler is the other color I'm using, Balmy Blue. And then I'm using these kind of, I thought they looked more like flowers. I don't know if technically they are a pine with that kind of a wispy shape, but they look like flowers to me. So I stamped 3 of them and then die cut them out. There's a die that will go right around there, and cut them out. And then I'm just going to layer them on the front of the card. As you see, there's only 3 of those, and we have 4 pieces of Designer Series paper left. So I really tried to use the 4th piece on the front. It just wasn't looking right because odd numbers generally look better. So what I did for the inside is I just cut it and kind of framed the greeting on the inside with that 4th piece. Or certainly you could just use that as a scrap and not use it. So, so let's do the inside first. That seems to go well. If we do that, let's see, I need to clean off my Warmest Winter Wishes here because I'm going to get my Cherry Cobbler out and make sure my Celebrate the Season is clean. And oh, I'm glad that you liked that ribbon cutting tip. Yeah, that's an oldie but a goodie too. Kind of a good way to use that. Get those nice edges. Alright, so Celebrate the Season. And again, these are just scraps of white. And so I'm not sure why I put 2 of them in here, but in case I made a mistake, probably. So we're just going to stamp right on there. And there we go. So I don't need the extra. And then on the inside, we're going to do the Warmest Winter Wishes. And then that is all the stamping that I did. Close up my ink pad. And we can adhere this to the inside of the card. And we'll stick the squares on later once I get everything stuck together. So I must have got that wet, so let's flip that. Let's go this, actually let's go that way so that is on the back, not the front. I think it will dry. I think it was just from my cleaning pad maybe. Anyway, alright, so there we go. We're going to layer this piece on, Cherry Cobbler piece. And I think I cut that ahead. Yeah. And here are the Designer Series paper pieces. So these are 1.5, so these are 1 3/4. And we're just going to layer those on top. And so when I picked the Balmy Blue, you can see, and I'll pull this up closer to the camera, in this paper, these pine boughs here, or pine needles, have a little bit more of a blue tint to them. So I think technically though it is the Pretty Peacock, but with the variation in the color, the Balmy Blue coordinates with it really well. So again, even if they list some of the colors on the Designer Series paper packs that are included, but there are so many more colors that will still coordinate outside of the ones that are listed. So if you have, a lot of our colors, you can just kind of hold that paper up to the different colors in your stash and see what colors coordinate with the Designer Series paper. You don't always have to just do the ones that are on the package. I find that more and more because there's so many different colors in the packs that they just can't list them all that could possibly coordinate. Okay. Alright, I need my paper trimmer, and it's buried, so hold on one second. I'm going to cut one of these at an angle here, or diagonal, so that I can use it for the inside of the card. Just going to get the points in the crevice of the trimmer and make sure it doesn't move. And then snip. Okay, so can stick these down on the inside. I know this is a stretch. I probably would not do this normally, just to use up that designer series paper, but it adds a little color on the inside, and I wanted to use up that last piece. Okay, so for the front then, we're gonna just evenly space these squares kind of across. I always usually start on the outside ones, and then you can always kind of put the middle one in so that it's spaced nicely. Between there. And then I didn't pop these up at all because I put those gems on the top. So if you weren't going to use a gem and you wanted to put some little dimensionals on the back, I think it would be reasonable to do. These, actually I might use glue just to, so that I can not tear the little, I might be getting too much glue on there because my glue is grippy. Hopefully I'm not making too much of a mess when I do this. And I didn't, like, you can certainly like lay them down so they're all kind of in the same direction if you want, but I wanted them more random. Doesn't matter to me if they're all like, you know, upright or, I kind of like them all over the place. So this one squished out a little bit, that glue, but you know, our glue will dry clear, so that won't be an issue. Let's put it on I should have maybe done this first. Alright, since I don't want to make a mess with that glue that had oozed out, I'm going to use glue on the back of this one too, rather than tape. And we'll lay this down in a nice layer. Oh! Okay, that one hadn't dried yet. Hold on. We'll put her back. Stay there. Okay, probably would have put a little glue on a few more of those petals. And I want to make sure this is semi-straight here. For those of you that know me, I'm not a huge, I know, I'm still getting used to glue. I'm coming around to it, but it's not my favorite adhesive. I know there's lots of people that only use glue and love it. Sometimes it's messy. And sometimes if I'm, like now, if that's a little bit crooked, it's really hard to correct it unless you pull it all the way off. So, look at the sample I did earlier for the nice straight lines. Alright, this one I'm using just the blue, or the actually pretty peacock kind of snowflakes or stars here to add a little bling. And again, if you're mailing this, you may not want to add those, or you could add the just a little holly berries on the inside of there for some little decoration like we did on that first one. Okay, so card number 4 done. Let me pull them all back out so you can see them all together. Alright, so this was number 1. We'll put them in order. With the 3x3 piece. This was number 2 with the diagonal. Number 3 and number 4, and you can see all the different greens that are included in this designer series paper, so it coordinates with a lot. Also, the old olive coordinates really well, so you could use card bases with old olive. And then I was going to pull in one more card. This is a card that I had done for a class that I did earlier in the month. And so this is another card that I made with this stamp set and suite, I guess it would be. So that's using both of the snowflakes, and I just layered them on top of each other. So they both have where you can cut out the inside so that you can actually see all the little petals, and then the inside of the card. So that is my other sample for you. Again, talk to the demonstrator who invited you if you wish to order, and you can get the project sheet of all of our projects. Our videos will be live on Facebook for 30 days, but then they'll go to our YouTube channel, and that's a Facebook thing. That's not our thing. They're no longer letting live videos stay there longer than 30 days, so that's why we have to transfer them. Okay. So that is my presentation. You've got about 15 minutes before Diane is up next, and she's also going to be using this suite, so you'll get a lot more ideas. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me this morning. Let me know if you're watching on replay, and I will see you next time.